Maybe I am thinking there's something hidden like this in all of us, a small gift from the universe waiting to be discovered. Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. Good morning, I'm Melissa Luna, Executive Director of Greenlight Fund Boston. I'm proud to be here today in partnership with Mayor Janey and Boston Public Schools to announce the launch of Working on Womanhood for the upcoming school year. At Greenlight Fund, we believe in the people of our city. Our city is filled with potential. Each year, we partner with the community to collectively create opportunities for individuals and families to move out of poverty. We collaborate to identify these opportunities and launch proven, innovative models locally so that people can build the life they are seeking. This past year, the need was incredibly overwhelming. Isolation, virtual learning, so many Zoom meetings. As adults, we were overwhelmed, and we still are as we navigate rebuilding and reimagining a city that is more equitable and just. Our young people navigated a constantly changing world at a time when they themselves were developing and going through the many changes of adolescence. In 2019, the year before the start of the pandemic, 45% of girls in Boston Public Schools reported feeling sad or hopeless for 2 or more weeks. Female students were significantly more likely to experience depression than their male peers. Girls experience trauma and community violence in ways that are different than boys. Girls of color uniquely experience the intersection of sexism and racism. I first felt the impact of WOW in 2019 when I went to Chicago. Originating from Youth Guidance, WOW is a sister program to the Becoming a Man program, which Greenlight helped launch here in 2017. Both of these in-school, multifaceted programs have gone under rigorous external evaluations to capture what every BAM and WOW student already know. These programs are life-changing. In the words of author and documentarian Monique Morris, love and school are the only things you get for free when you're young. It is a powerful thing to have seen the girls in WOW at the school in Chicago experience both. I saw a group of girls who cared and supported each other, and with their WOW counselor, explored the challenges of female adolescence with positive and affirming guidance. Now, our young people are resilient. As schools reopen and we explore what the next phase of life looks like, our girls need supports like WOW, more people and more safe places to turn to. I'm incredibly proud to be part of the community's response and support for girls of color with the launch of Working on Womanhood program in Boston Public Schools. And I'm incredibly fortunate to do so in partnership with the Youth Guidance team. Michelle Morrison, CEO of Youth Guidance, is here with us, along with several of the Chicago team members. Our partnership over these past 4 years with Becoming a Man program has built a strong foundation for our continued partnership as we launch Working on Womanhood this year. You'll also hear later this morning from Sean Brown, who needs no introduction. He's the reason why most of you are here today. To talk about the success of WOW would feel like an understatement, or BAM would feel like an understatement. And now we're fortunate to have him do the same with the WOW program. Our city, our schools are better because of his commitment to the young men and women of Boston. And now I'm honored to welcome up Mayor Kim Janey. Mayor Janey has worked tirelessly as an advocate for children, youth, and families of Boston. I first met Mayor Janey more than a decade ago in her role at Mass Advocates for Children, and as mayor, she continues to draw from both her professional and personal experiences to ensure our Black and brown girls can achieve their dreams. Because our girls are dreamers, they're gifts from the universe. They're future makers, they aspire, they lead, and it is upon all of us to make sure they don't have to wait to be discovered. And now, Mayor Janey.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you, Melissa, for that wonderful introduction, and certainly for all the work that you do now and the work that we did many, many, many moons ago when I was at Mass Advocates for Children. You were always right there on the front lines, so I really appreciate you. I also want to recognize Mary Churchill, who is here. She is my Chief of Policy and Planning. Where are you, Mary? Thank you so much for being here. She is also joined by our Deputy Chief of Policy, Lindsay Butler. Thank you for your leadership as well. I want to recognize and thank Dr. Charles Grandson, who is the Chief of Equity and Strategy at Boston Public Schools. Thank you for all of the hard work that you do. I want to thank this school and this team, and certainly my good friend Kevin McCaskill. Thank you so much for being here. I see you in the back. Please give it up for Kevin. I want to acknowledge MGH and Christy and her team, as well as Michelle and her team. Thank you so much for all of your work. I appreciate you all. Yes, you can give it up for them, please. Thank you so much. I am really honored to be here with all of you this morning. Today is a day where we celebrate the present and the future of our city, and particularly our youth. For young women and girls, there has always been a need for programs that specifically target them. This need was prevalent well before the pandemic and remains an imperative now. As such, this investment is not so much a response to COVID-19, but rather a direct response to the needs of Boston's young women and girls. This is why I'm so excited to announce the launch of Working on Womanhood, or the WOW program. When we look at what has been achieved with becoming a man, and I have to give a shout out to this brother right here, Sean Brown. Thank you so much for your leadership. You know, I remember, I guess it was a couple of years ago now, coming to visit you and to sit in circle with you and the young men, and it was such a powerful, moving experience for me, and to see the way young men could share and support each other was incredible, and just grateful for all that you do. I'm so inspired by everything that you have done, and I know now that we will see the same things with WOW. So thank you so much for all of your work. WOW has been shown to decrease depression, anxiety, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder. And we know that this is a huge issue, given that this is the third school year. We are entering the third school year that COVID has impacted our young people. And it is not just impacting their academic success, but we know in terms of a social, emotional learning perspective, it is impacting them in that way. This is proof that the work happening at WOW is not only needed, but it is effective, because it is shown to decrease these things. This program and the holistic set of services it provides supports our schools, supports our girls, and our communities. At WOW, young girls get the opportunity to learn more about self-love and self-care. And I can tell you, as a woman who grew up here in this city, how incredibly important that is. And for many of us, if we're honest, these are lessons that we did not learn until we were much older. And so I did not have a WOW or another program like that when I was coming up, and this is certainly needed. This past year and a half has brought on unpredictable changes, not just with COVID, but we all know that we are also in the midst of a reckoning of racial injustice in our country. And there have been protests and happening all over our country, and certainly right here. And young people, especially women, have been at the forefront. And I want to shout out Monica Cannon Grant, who is here, who has done a lot of work in that front locally. Young people have always led the way when it comes to movements, and women have always been the ones who have been organizing these movements for racial and social justice. Black girls, many of us do not recognize always the power that we carry, because the world doesn't recognize that in us. Whether it is through racism or sexism, there are so many challenges that we have to overcome. But I know that we have a collective power, and I want for the young women in this room and the young women who will be served through WOW to understand that power. We often talk about Black Girl Magic, and we do walk with that magic, and I tell people all the time, as the first woman mayor and the first Black mayor of Boston, that I carry my Black Girl Magic with me when I enter the halls of City Hall downtown. But I'm also aware, yes, we can give it up for Black Girl Magic, but I am keenly aware that it is not magic that is going to get us through the many challenges that we face. And we have to make sure that our young women are armed with the protection that they need and the understanding of who they are and the power that they carry with them. The counselors at WOW, I help young women learn about healthy relationships and offer a safe space for girls to speak freely. While at WOW, you will get to know and understand who you are and the power that you have within. Young women all over our city need to feel comfortable expressing themselves, and ultimately that comfort leads to confidence. And that confident attitude will determine how high you can go. Bringing WOW to Boston aligns directly with the city and BPS's investments in the promise of young people and supports equitable recovery from the pandemic. This program provides a supportive environment and a support system for all girls. And I'm really pleased to support Youth Guidance's efforts to launch its Working on Womanhood program right here in Boston. WOW is evidence-based and has a proven track record of improving girls and young women's social and emotional well-being, increasing their academic attainment, and decreasing their engagement in risky behavior. Moreover, the WOW program increases opportunities and mental health support for youth, especially youth from communities that have been disadvantaged historically in Boston and throughout cities all across our country. And if we're really honest with ourselves, we know we want everyone to feel like they belong, and we know that that is not always the case, that we show up in spaces all the time where people want to limit us. But here I want everyone to know that you belong, that you belong, that you have a voice, you have a place in our city. And no matter what challenges that any one of us could be facing, that the WOW counselors are here to be, they're here for you. And their mentors have often experienced the same types of challenges. You will always have someone in your corner, and you will always have a safe space. I want the young people here in particular to know and understand you are much more than anyone's limited expectation of you. You are more than what the media portrays of you. And you are more than a statistic. I want you to realize the power and the strength that you have within. And I want you to know and walk with confidence that you will be supported through this program and through your experiences outside of this program. And I know that many of you will continue in leadership here in the city of Boston and throughout our country. As mayor, I will always be in your corner. I will be here to support you because I want to see you succeed. This is why I am so pleased to support WOW's expansion to Boston, starting with the launch in 3 BPS schools this fall. In those schools, one of them, Madison Park Vocational. Give it up for Madison. In addition to Madison, the Burke and English High School. So I look forward to continuing to work and to champion our young girls and our young men throughout the city of Boston. I am really grateful again to Youth Guidance. I want to thank Sean and folks at BAM again, and WOW, certainly BPS for all of your work, and every single person in this room that helped make this day possible. Thank you so much. Let's continue to support our young people. Thank you.
graduated. Got my WOW mask. Thanks, Sean. And now I'd like to welcome Michelle Morrison, CEO of Youth Guidance.
Oh, I have chills. It's just so powerful to have a leader like you speak so authentically about the power and potential of the young women of Boston, and someone who truly understands that if you get the right support in place at just the right time, they can take it and run with it, not only for working on womanhood, but becoming a man as well. So thank you so much, Mayor Janey, for your support and passion for the young people of this city. Thank you. My mother grew up here in Boston, and so I feel that like female power leadership coming through the heavens, opening up and saying, wow, needed to be here. And just thank you to Melissa and the Greenlight Fund and the Boston Public Schools and the mayor's office for just believing in this and recognizing that the young women of Boston deserved this kind of infusion of help and support, and we are so honored to be here to provide that support. I'm Michelle Adler-Morrison. I'm the CEO of Youth Guidance. In Youth Guidance, we know that social and emotional aspects of development are absolutely critical to success in school and in life. And that's why we partner with schools to deliver innovative, culturally responsive, evidence-based programs that young people actually want to participate in. That's a critical part of this. They actually want to participate in becoming a man and working on womanhood, and I think that's why they work. So by working full-time in schools alongside really wonderful teachers and school staff and partnering with parents and partnering with community-based organizations, our staff help remove the barriers that young people have often to getting the access to the support they need when they need it most. And our staff, again, work full-time in schools. They become part of the lifeblood of a school. And we think they help create these safe, beautiful spaces where young people can be heard, affirmed, and recognized. And it is just so exciting for us to be able to launch WOW and talk about WOW among stakeholders, many of whom were here with us 4 years ago in this school to launch Becoming a Man. And it was at that launch that not only the stakeholders of the city, but the young people themselves said, what about the girls? And we said, oh, what about the girls? We have a program that we can bring someday. Let's get BAM going, let's launch BAM, let's really, really create a movement here, and someday we'll be able to bring our Working on Womanhood program. So it is so exciting to me, 10 years after WOW was developed, that we're bringing WOW to Boston. So I want to thank you so much for making this happen. So now as we welcome students back into schools, WOW will be there, walking alongside of them, working along school and community partners and families, addressing the anxiety and the trauma of the past 2 years. But as Mayor Janey said, the experiences of young women have just been ignored or not identified or elevated for years before then. So WOW creates these safe, welcoming spaces for young women to pull together, to be heard, to be affirmed for the beautiful people they are, and for them to start becoming equipped with what we think of as pandemic-proof skills, a vision for their future, problem-solving skills, team-building skills, and leadership. That's what we're going to be doing in the fall. That's what we're going to be doing for the long run here in the Boston Public Schools. And honestly, it's because of passionate leaders like you in this room. I want to recognize and thank the City of Boston, the Boston Public Schools, the Greenlight Fund of Boston, and Melissa Luna and her leadership, who said, we are going to make this happen. This is your day. This is your victory. Thank you so much for believing us. And please know that leaders like Sean Brown, if you step up, he is going to engage you. He is going to affirm you. He is going to ask you who you're friends with and who your network that cares about the needs of both young women and young men in this city, and ask you to become part of this broader circle. So I want to recognize Sean Brown and his excellent team here in Chicago. Sean, if you're here, thank you. And thank you to Dr. Granson and Dr. Casilius. Your leadership at the Boston Public Schools is critical to our success and helping us also engage with other school districts who are recognizing similar needs and saying BAM and WOW should be part of their journey. So thank you so much for your leadership. And so now we're ready to step up together for the young women of Boston. And together we will support them, uplift them, celebrate them as they bring their bright futures ahead. And on behalf of the Youth Guidance family, thank you. Now we're going to go to
Hello. I just wanted to preface this by saying, because I was getting interviewed and I was getting pictures taken, I felt the spotlight on me. And then I remembered that I am a woman, and I am proud to be a woman, because I am not here today to not just to give you a speech, but I'm also here to represent womanhood and represent who we all are. So I want to recognize not only my best friend who is sitting here today, Lindsay Cardona, but also every single woman in this room, because you are seen and you are heard, and I love you. So. Good morning. I am Kate Lamana, a rising senior at Boston Latin Academy. I am the first and only girl currently working at Youth Guidance BAM Scholar Program. During the school year, I was desperate for a job. I spent months applying with only 1 or 2 interviews that never really went anywhere. I started looking at SuccessLink as some of my friends were able to find opportunities there. And then I came across BAM. I was a little wary at first. I saw that BAM stood for becoming a man, but I went for it anyway, though I definitely did not expect a call back. 2 weeks later, I was in a push class listening to other students present their projects. Of course, I'm a little distracted. It was Zoom. But to my surprise, got an email from Jameson Collier asking to schedule a group interview, which is always a little nerve-wracking because you always feel that someone's going to be a little bit better than you and feel outshadowed. And after the initial excitement wore off, I started to get extremely nervous. I had no idea if it was a mistake applying, and at the minute I joined the interview, I wouldn't be taken seriously. I spent days preparing and reading about the program in order to do the best I possibly could in the interview, and the interview ended up going really well. I was immediately drawn to the energy that was created by the mentors in the program, and about 2 weeks later, I was informed that I was selected to join the BAM School Year Scholar Training Academy, which is a paid enrichment program offered by BAM in the city of Boston. Of course, being the only female, I was really scared that the other boys wouldn't accept me and would just write me off during discussions. This really caused me to work extra hard to make sure my voice was always heard. Halfway through the program, I started becoming friends with the other boys, including Kanye Baden, who is now genuinely one of my closest friends and BAM brother. Kanye made sure that I was always being heard and checked in on me outside of the program, and even introduced me to some other friends who I adore. Other boys in the program from all different schools were also a huge help as well. I loved being able to joke around and talk at the end of work, and the FaceTimes we would do on non-work days were really fun. We truly built a community during and after the program, and most importantly, I didn't feel like an outsider at all. Though I do and will always love the BAM program and my BAM brothers, I do know how impactful it would be to have the same program for girls. One of BAM's core values is the respect for womanhood, something that is vital for all boys and men to understand. This is equally as important in a program directed towards girls. For such a long time, women have been written off as weak in society, a fact that is just simply not true. As women, we are strong, independent leaders and should never feel anything less. I would love for Boston to have an outlet for girls everywhere so they can see their own self-worth and become the strong, beautiful women I know them to be. I will no longer sit around and watch the oppression of women continue not only in life, but also in government. So a program similar to BAM for girls is the best option to ensure a better future for girls everywhere. Our voices will be heard. Our opinions are just as important. We will no longer be a part of the female stereotype. Now I must ask a question. Times are changing. Are you? Instill positive change, make a program for girls. Thank you so much.
Good morning. All right, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Well, I just want to thank you, Kate, for those words, and thank everyone for all the great words. Mayor Janey, welcome to the young women and young ladies who are here with us today, to the Greater Boston BPS community. I bring greetings from our superintendent, Dr. Brenda Caselius, who really wanted to be here today, as bringing WOW to Boston was one of the first conversations she engaged in with Sean and Michelle when she arrived to Boston 2 years ago. And now, after 2 years in a pandemic, this program is going to be critical as we return, recover, and reimagine education. I'd like to thank Sean Brown for his commitment and leadership in making this opportunity possible for Boston's young women. Throughout the pandemic, at the very beginning, we reached out to him, and I am elevated every week or so often when I get a text from Sean King, good morning. And he just keeps us going and has continued to be a great support and a partner in everything that we've done throughout this pandemic and over the last 4 years. Under your leadership, BAM has been a model for excellence and for what happens when love for our students and families as people and understanding their social emotional needs shows up at the intersection of public service. Additionally, I'd like to thank Mayor Janey and acknowledge her support and that of her team and just the inspiring words that you offered us today that really sets the tone for what we're here and what we're doing. For Chair Chrissy Egan, past Chair Thaddeus Miles, for their leadership, and other members of the BAM Advisory Board, as well as the Green Light Fund Executive Director Melissa Luna, for her passion and energy she's brought to this work, and Michelle for the great words and the support over the years, and the folks that just had a hand in making this happen. Trung Nugent, we appreciate the work of you and many others. Thank you. I'll just quickly share for us, in my adolescence, I had the opportunity to spend some time with the great Dorothy Height, who's an educator and president of the National Council for Negro Women. She said, we have to improve life not just for those who have the most skills and those who know how to manipulate the system, but also for those, with those who often have so much to give but never get the opportunity. And the history teacher in me compels me to remind us that we're on the third leg of a 200-year relay race for liberation. From Tubman and Wells to Dorothy Height and Fannie Lou Hamer, from Elma Lewis and Melnia Cass to Janey and Presley, and to the young women who are with us today and who will benefit from this program. In the Boston Public Schools, we endeavor to realize our mission and vision for every child having equitable access to a supportive and culturally affirming high-quality education that realizes equitable outcomes across our city, which means that every student gets what they need. Every child in BPS and across the country deserves a chance at a meaningful education that centers their strengths, affirms their humanity and worth, and challenges them to be the best version of themselves. Becoming a Man has expanded that access to so many young men of color in our community over the last few years, and we are excited for what's in store for working on womanhood and for our young women. Thank you.
Good morning. In the incomparable words of the sage philosopher Beyonce, who rules the world? Who rules the world? Who rules the world? All right. Good morning. My name is Christy Egan, and I have the pleasure of serving as BAM's Boston Advisory Council chairperson. Thank you. From day one, it was clear that BAM Boston was destined for greatness. And as many of us witnessed the transformative impact that the program had on BAM scholars, particularly our boys of color, the question has been when and how would we replicate the work for our deserving young women? And as the drumbeat to this question grew louder, So did the advocacy of so many inside and outside of this room. Your combined voices formed a unified chorus that created a change, which will forever alter the lives of Boston youth. Today, we launch our expansion to become a BAM Wow site. Won't he do it? And we are both humbled and honored to be a part of molding and shaping the Commonwealth's most precious commodity, its children. Our excitement today is matched only by our understanding of how critical programs like WOW and BAM need to be as we work to define a new normal in the midst of a global pandemic and racial and social unrest in America. Over the past 2 years, our young people have sacrificed and been sacrificed. And the ability to be seen, heard, lifted up through interventions like working on womanhood and becoming a man can and will change the trajectory of their lives. For the past 4 years, the advisory committee, which is comprised of leaders representing the public and private sectors, has supported the BAM program through strategic guidance, fundraising, and the facilitation of partners at the community and city and state levels, which has really allowed us to support more than 500 scholars. We are equally as eager and ready to leverage our expertise and networks to support WOW in the same way, and to ensure that our young women have access to all the opportunities that our BAM scholars have. As the Senior Director of Partnerships, Equity, and Inclusion at Mass General Hospital, I am committed to supporting WOW scholars as we've done with the BAM scholars by exposing them to opportunities and careers in science and healthcare. I encourage others of you in the room who have the ability to make such a commitment to do so. The children are our future. On behalf of the Boston Advisory Committee, I'd like to extend a very appreciative thank you to Mayor Janey for your words. You are a shero and a hero, and we just appreciate the journey that you are on and allowing us to see. And to the leadership of the Boston Public Schools, thank you for your commitment and your investment. It will go a long way to make a difference in the lives of our young people. It is now my pleasure to introduce Sean Brown, Youth Guidance Boston Executive Director. And for those of you who know Sean, his incomparable vision, his fortitude, and his heart walk into the room first. And when he asks, it is difficult to say no, which is why I'm here. But it is all good, and it is all for the right purpose, the purpose of leading our children. So with that, I welcome Sean.
Good morning and welcome everyone. Well, let's try that again. Good morning and welcome everyone. No pun intended, but wow. This is beautiful. If there's one thing BAM has taught me, it's taught me to be okay with being vulnerable. It's taught me to be okay with crying if you have to cry. And it's probably a good thing that we're going to start this with this video first, because if I didn't, I'll be up here crying. So we're going to show this video and then I'll get right into our remarks.
I didn't know what self-love was. I never knew what a healthy relationship was. I never knew myself, and I never wanted to actually get to know myself.
Coming from a Latinx, specifically Mexican background, counseling wasn't something that was really talked about in my community or back at home. So having been introduced to WOW as a counseling group, counseling support, was very intimidating.
It was like a weight being lifted. Like you finally get to speak your mind. You finally get to say what you've been thinking, and without anybody worrying about your well-being and just understanding.
I think WOW is a really good place for people to find a confidence in who they want to be because it's such a safe space. It's filled with other people who you may not even know are experiencing similar things that you are, and you're able to verbalize those skills to a group of people who are not going to judge you.
It's nice to know that I bloomed. Like, not only have I bloomed, but a lot of ladies that went through the same thing that I went through, like with the whole WOW experience, and they bloomed with me. They walked that same path that I walked, and we all like know each other. We all know each other's struggles, and we all been that open ear for each other.
And now they're able to understand who they are. They're able to understand their emotions. They're able to understand relationships, boundaries. They're able to set goals, and they're able to be leaders.
When this whole thing happened, we didn't know that we was going to be out of school for a whole year and some months. Before we left for school, Miss Watson gave all of the WOW girls envelopes with her contact information in it and a positive affirmation card in it. And I still got it on my mirror. It says, Alicia, I am always learning more about who I am and what matters to me. And then it got like a little sticker. I've always kept this on my mirror, and I just look at it every time I wake up in the morning and just remind myself, like, you are more than what you think you are.
I want to start off by saying that we are extremely happy to be here today. Today we are celebrating the culmination of something that has been brewing for quite some time. For the past 2 years, I have been working tirelessly with our local and national leadership teams in the district to bring WOW to Boston. I'm happy that that day is finally here. Yeah, let's give that up. Absolutely. It's a cause for celebration and affirmation, so let's give that up. So what does that mean now that WOW is here? Today represents the investment of young women in Boston, and more specifically, Black and brown young women, our queens of the Boston Public Schools. For the past couple of years, all I've heard from young queens is, what about us? You have BAM, this amazing program, but we need a program too. Absolutely. You heard Kate's amazing testimony. Not only did we hear this from our young people, but we heard it from our teachers, we heard it from our administrators, we heard it from parents. I can't stress enough how thrilled we are to be expanding youth guidance programs in Boston. Partnering with Green Life Fund Boston to expand WOW to serve young women allows us to address social and emotional challenges before they become barriers to school and life success. At this time, I would like to first publicly and graciously thank our partners, Mayor Janey, the Green Life Fund, Dr. Casillas, and our district, school district for stepping up on this important initiative that will make a difference in the lives of 1,000 young women across the city and greater Boston, while making a better future for all. Mayor Janey, thank you for your commitment to youth development through pathways such as employment, career opportunities, skill development, and academic success, while addressing mental health challenges to support youth while they navigate life. We are so grateful for your commitment and continued support and championing our programs. Not only championing our programs, but also amplifying them as well. I'm truly appreciative because I remember vividly, I vividly remember when you sat in that BAM circle with our BAM scholars. And I remember you showing up as your authentic self. I remember you modeling vulnerability, which made it easier for our young kings to do their work in that space. So thank you for always staying true to who you are. I appreciate you, Queen. I love you, and forever grateful. To John, I believe he's here. To John, Margaret, and Melissa and the Green Life Fund, you believed in our curriculum for young men in BAM, and we're eager to welcome the same success through the implementation of WOW. We are thankful to the Green Life Fund for your continued support and investment to making better outcomes for many youth as possible. Melissa, I can go on forever talking about what you've meant to me personally and BAM Boston, but all I will say is that we are because you are. And I appreciate you, Queen. I'd also like to acknowledge Boston and Cambridge Public Schools as a partner. Their shared support and endorsement of our curriculum is vital to both the implementation of WOW into Boston, providing much needed access to Black and brown students. Also, their commitment to ensuring the sustainability of WOW through financial investment as well. Thank you. We've heard Mayor Janey and others talk about how our education system is grappling with unprecedented challenges for an entire generation of students. We're also dealing with a spur of violence coupled with learning loss and social disconnection because of the ongoing pandemic. When we look at these challenges, they profoundly impact low-income students and those already furthest from opportunity. What each student may need looks different, but all students need access to mentorship and mental health while we figure this thing out, especially our young women. To the young queens in here today, I look forward to serving you. My number one core value, I love all the BAM core values, but my number one core value, as you heard Kate speak to, is respect for womanhood. Three most important people in my life is my daughter, my wife, and my mother. So every day I wake up and think about how do we make the world a better place for them? How do I do more? How do I continue to invest in pouring not only them, but all the young queens and young women in the city of Boston, and just greater Boston as a whole. I want to take a minute to share some research that we've learned from a survey directed to our WOW girls in Chicago and Kansas City. 85% of WOW students identified as having experienced a traumatic event in their life. After joining WOW, 62% of WOW students identified as experiencing fewer PTSD symptoms. 71% of WOW students experience fewer depression symptoms of those starting in the clinical range. It gets better. WOW success in schools and in the classroom leads to better outcomes. 98% of our WOW students were promoted to the next grade or graduated. 96% of our students feel WOW has helped them make better decisions for themselves. And that is a direct correlation to healthy relationships with their WOW counselors. That is also a direct correlation to our young queens internalizing the core values of WOW. So that's why this launch is important. Today we know that starting this August that our young women in Boston will experience similar supports and success. Even before the pandemic, a mental health crisis existed among students struggling with bullying, abuse, eating disorders, racism, or undiagnosed mental health conditions. But now more than ever, students are facing even more stresses like the loss of a family member from COVID-19, adjusting to remote learning, or the anxiety of returning to in-person school. It absolutely warms my heart knowing that WOW counselors will be there to help our young women navigate those issues and empower them along the way. I want to close with this. At BAM, we always ask the question, what makes your heart hurt? Two things that makes my heart hurt is when I have a parent, family member, or someone from the community ask me how do they get their child involved in our program, whether that's a son, daughter, niece, or nephew. And the first question I have to ask, depending on if they're inquiring for a young woman or a young man, is what school do they go to? And if they're not in one of our 12 schools, then they're not eligible for BAM or WOW services. In the case of young women, we don't have a program for girls yet, but we're working on bringing our sister program, WOW, to Boston. It really hurt when my daughter would ask me, when are we going to have a girls program? Because she's seen the impact that BAM has had on some of her peers. She's seen the impact that BAM has had on her father and her brothers. And she wants the same for herself and her peers. Knowing the impact of WOW and some of the things that she's dealt with, I'm excited about WOW coming to Boston on many levels. I'll continue to work tirelessly to ensure that WOW and BAM is available for any young man or young woman who wants it in the city of Boston and across the Commonwealth, because that's how much I believe in these programs. I know from firsthand experience the power that happens between a caring adult and a young person. But as many of you has heard me say before, I need your help and continued support, because we can't do this alone. I can't do this alone. No one organization does this alone. It takes champions and people like everyone in this room to make a true difference. Anyone who knows me has heard this quote before, and it's how I live my life, and it's what drives my work. There's a difference between interest and commitment. When you're interested, you do it when it's convenient. When you're committed, you do it by any means necessary. And I am absolutely 1,000% committed to leading an organization with integrity that works day in and day out to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline, increase graduation rates, and providing mentorship and addressing mental health issues for our Black and brown young men and women by any means necessary. Yeah. I'm committed to creating bright and successful futures for young people in the city of Boston and greater Boston as a whole. My hope is that if you've already been a partner and supporter, you continue to support. You continue to be committed to supporting. And if you're not or haven't been, that you join us in the fight today, because our young babies need us. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? My mentor used to always say, if you can't do a whole lot, then do a whole little. To close, there's a few folks that I want to thank, and this is going to get me in trouble. There's always few people, but I want to acknowledge. I first want to acknowledge all of our advisory council members for being here today, for supporting me from day one. I also would like to acknowledge Greg Hill. I'm not sure if he's in the room, but if Greg is here, I want to acknowledge him for just your passion, King. You've pushed me, and we've pushed each other since we were probably in 7th grade. It goes back 30 years. So to see you here with me, King, and to see the young queens and the work that you're doing, I want to acknowledge you in front of you. And I look forward to doing great things with you at the Burke. Thank you. Also want to acknowledge Monica Grant. I believe I saw her earlier. I want to acknowledge Monica. She's been a great advocate and support for me as well, and really looking to connect with her around how do we address supports for our young women, but also for violence in this community. I want to acknowledge Nivea and North Boston for being here. Thank you for always being a champion for BAM. We both sat in on a BAM circle, and one of the questions Nora asked was, I love this, but what about our girls? So we're here, Nora. We're here, and I look forward to having you in a BAM circle, both of you in a BAM circle, a WOW circle. Apologize. And then I said I was going to get in trouble because I didn't forget. Brianna Ford. I want to acknowledge Brianna Ford from the Louis Family Foundation. And all of our supporters, Pamela Elhart, I want to thank you for your continued support in BAM, and our scholars. I definitely want to acknowledge you. Jessica, truly appreciate your support as well. And last but not least, Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre has been like a mother, a second mother to me. When I first came into doing this work and graduated from college, and I was running my own nonprofit, and I was looking to get into the district, Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre gave me that platform and opened her doors in alternative ed setting. And then every school that she went to followed. Diamond Educator was in that building. So I stand here today because of you. I'm and I'm forever grateful and appreciative, and I love you. So my team, Van Boston, Kevin Ross, Chung, Nguyen, can you please give them a round of applause, because yes, I am the face, but I'm only as good as, you know, those kings. I believe in my leadership style is high ingredient people and getting out the way. And that's what I do. So to Jameson and Jerome, who's not here, my leadership team, thank you. To our BAM counselors who are here, thank you for your commitment. It's time to, the real work starts now. So thank you.